Hey there, you're watching Bare Knuckle Binder. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm working on getting this flatbed in order that's on the back of the M-5H-6. I'm just trying to deck it with some oak I have. Real quick about this truck. This is an M-5H-6. However, if you're new to the channel, this truck was a 6x6 as all M-5H-6s were. However, this truck has been bobbed to a 4x4. Now, I have to say this, I feel like I have to say this every time, but this truck was pretty much slated for the junk pile because the rear end was so trashed. It had been repaired poorly, broken, repaired, broken over and over and over again for decades, to the point that the rear end was unsavable. So I bobbed it to a four-wheel drive with period correct parts. So it actually has springs and everything out of a KB7. And that is actually the only civilian truck that the spring pins are the same size. Everything kind of crossed over and it fit perfectly. Anyway, I've always wanted a flatbed on this. It's always just been a bare frame, so it's only been good for pulling stuff around, which it's really good at. But I need to get this flatbed done. I have limited time. I also have the R-170 wrecker over here that I'm trying to get a bunch of stuff done on these two trucks the next 2 days. So before I get into that, let me get into one thing, an ongoing problem that this truck has been dealing with. Or maybe I should say a problem with this truck that I've been dealing with ongoing. This truck has a gas tank on it that I just put on it a couple months ago. This is actually the spare tank that was sitting in the back of the L122 for auxiliary gas tank when we went across the country through Nevada. The tank that this truck had on it was just like this tank, sitting in the chicken coop down by the house. And years ago, I had it treated by a shop in Austin when I didn't have space to treat it myself. And they put red coat in it. I've talked about fuel tank liners before. The only fuel tank liner that I will personally use is PR15 because red coat and cream, etc. I've never had a gas tank liner that didn't fail except for PR15. And the reason they fail apparently is because of ethanol. And this truck sits quite a bit. It also gets 8 miles a gallon or something like that. Probably a little bit more since I bobbed it. Let's say 8 to 10 miles a gallon. So it's not really feasible to use ethanol-free gas. So it gets just whatever pump gas is available. So it sits with this stuff. It caused a red coat lining to fail. It went through the fuel system. And I think it took out the pump as well. So this is a replacement tank. It was sitting for a while and it was acting like it got water in the gas. However, I believe the fuel pump just failed. I put a new fuel pump on it, or a new rebuilt fuel pump. It's right there. I don't completely trust everything about the system. If it's got water in the gas, it'll show up in the bowl. However, by the time it hits the bowl, it's already in the carb. So what I did was rigged up this little thing here, gravity feed. This is a little Farmall starter tank off my M, running it down into the carb here, just gravity feed. So that thing will run the truck. Fuel pump will pump, hopefully. If there's water in the gas, we'll see it in the bowl. I'll deal with it then, completely drain this tank. If there's not water in the gas and it's pumping, then I'll just hook the thing back up to the carb. Bob's your uncle. Or if it's not pumping, it's either the pickup tube or the pump. And at this point, pumps for these, they're not free, let's say. So I think I'm going to go to a 12-volt electric pump. Now, like I said in a previous video, I use electric pumps where I live because it's a more populous area. And it's really cool to have a kill switch for theft prevention. But out here, where this truck is, chances are pretty low. This is a pretty slow getaway anyway. But you use an electric pump because it sits for a long time and you have to crank this thing forever to get gas up to the carb. So with an electric pump, you just turn on the switch, wait a couple seconds, it already has gas up to the carb. The other cool thing about an electric fuel pump on something like this, something that sits a long time, is that you can have a kill switch on the pump and kill the thing when you park this thing and let it idle until it dies, and that will clear the carb of all that ethanol. So it won't be sitting with a bunch of ethanol gas in the carb, which we all know causes a bunch of problems. That's just a heads up. That's what's going on with this fuel system. So I'm kind of dealing with that in the meantime. My main project today is this bed. I need to move it up a little bit. I need to cut that stake pocket off so I can knock it right up to the cab there. And then I also need to cut this thing right about here. That's 9 feet. I want a 9-foot flatbed on this thing. I don't need it any longer than that. That's an old seat out of my A120. So I'll get that off. This is just a board I set in here to see how it looked. It looks good. Here's a problem. This thing is just sitting on here. So I'm gonna ratchet strap this thing down before I fire this thing up and roll it down to the shop. So anyway, filming all this make-ready stuff is gonna be a pain in the butt. So I'm just gonna get this done, get it down to the shop, and we'll pick up from there. All right, well, she's in the shop. Gas tank worked great. Fuel pump is kind of working, but it's leaking around the edges. So if you're staying tuned for that, I will be converting it to electric pump just for the absolute convenience of it. All right, so I've got the back end of this thing hanging out of the shop because I'm gonna be cutting it off and capping it. Still need to get into there. I'm gonna have to cover up the gas tank with a blanket or something and whiz wheel that thing off. I'm talking about the stake pocket right here. Anyway, let me go outside and show you what I'm looking at. All right, so the back of this thing is hanging off clearly quite a bit. And like I said, I want to cut it at this 9-foot section. Now, I could cut it right here, move all of this up here. That would require cutting a lot of that stuff here, and then welding it there. Honestly, what I really want to do is just cut everything off of this back cap. Cut this out, all that, cut it along here, and just move this whole thing up. And then take one of these bars, these extra ones, cut it in half on the edge, and put it in here for a lip to mount the edge of the boards on. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll be cutting the, the outside rails and all this stuff with a cutoff wheel. But when it comes time to actually cut these frame beams, I'm gonna use the torch, and then this thing will just fall off the back out of harm's way. But I'll actually cut it with the torch an inch or two past where I'm gonna weld it together. That way I can clean up the cut with the cutoff wheel and make it nice and flat and straight, and et cetera and so on. So I'm gonna set up a time lapse and get through this. Okay, so with all the prep work done pretty much, I've got this flatbeds all chopped up here. I've got to do a little bit of trimming here as I hold up the cap to it, the end cap. But end cap's over here. This piece of angle I cut to put on the end here. The frame rails here, they tapered up at the end. So these are about half the size of the frame rails that are currently on the end of the flatbed, and they're actually a little narrower. So there's a little bit of play in the width of these frame rails, but I've got a solution for that. I'll show you right now. On these frame rails, to to add a little strength and to give me more to weld to, because I'm going to weld those to it. They'll meet up here on the top, but I'm going to fill these in, box them in like that, and then that'll get me all the surface area I need to weld more of those to that. So I'll get these all welded in, and the end rails here, these are also about probably at least a 1/4 inch too wide right now. So got the ratchet strap around them. The ratchet strap wouldn't pull these in enough to make it meet. But like I said, if I'm boxed in like this, give me more surface area to weld to. And then I'm pretty sure I can bring these in with a ratchet strap to meet the outside rails on the end cap. So let's get after this. Okay, so now I got these caps welded in, cleaned up, looking good. And looking pretty good. Still gotta weld the inside of them, but happy with how the outsides are looking. In the meantime, I believe these are backed a little too far, so I've got to probably grind in on this end. These got to come in a little bit, probably about a 1/4 inch. So once I get that done, then I lift the end cap up with the hoist there and set her up and just start welding it in. Well, I got it tacked on here, so it's all right. I mean, we are dealing with an old junk flatbed, but it's going together pretty good. Let's take a look at it. Getting some decent stuff on there. Got a little bit of nasty welds going on, but I got to get these welded up. They're butted together pretty nice. That one's welded on the far side. I'm gonna weld in the middle there. I'm gonna weld on the inside right over there. Probably gonna take this plate out. Anyway, I'm gonna finish welding this. The welding part's really not the whole crux of the whole project here, so I'm just gonna get this all done and then start putting the boards in. I gotta get this project done. Well, ran out of time again on this trip, but this is what I've got done so far. A whopping 4 boards. A whopping 4 boards bolted down, but I mean, it's going good. I'm running out of time, so I gotta go back to Texas. Before I do, I'm gonna slop some used motor oil on these things to preserve them. I know they look really pretty now, but They look a lot better when they don't rot out. But yeah, this bed is coming along. I'm happy with the progress. The stake pocket's still got to come out before I connect it for the long term. These things I got to cut off about here, heat them with the torch here and bend them in and weld them. In the meantime, they're major hazards for the face. And let's see here. I need to get some U-bolts because right now I just have this thing ratchet strapped securely to the frame, so it's enough to hold it on the truck while I'm driving around. But I think when I bring it forward, that frame end will fit nicely with this thing where it needs to be up here, I think. So, you know, I think the truck looks good with this flatbed. I'm happy with it. I didn't have time to do the fuel pump thing. What do you think, BB? All right, so all of that said, I ran out of time, and that happens more and more these days when I'm up here. Honestly, that happens to me a lot because I bite off more than I can chew, but lately it's happened to me more and more when I'm up here, even though I'm getting a lot done. If you follow me on Instagram, I mentioned this, and just briefly, and I don't really like to make my private life public too much, but it's to a point where I kind of got to mention the reason I've been coming up to Wisconsin so much in the last year. I usually try to make it up here a couple times a year for sure, you know, because my family lives up here. But in the last year, my dad, who's been managing cancer for quite a while, 5 years or so, a little more, got a pretty tough diagnosis, and stuff has escalated. And so my dad is basically fighting for his life right now. And so it makes it tough to just come up here and work on projects the entire time. So while I do get up here more to work on more stuff, I don't have as much time to work on it as I might have in the past, or I really have to manage my time better. So it's tough, you know, it's really tough. But anyway, really, if you pray, please pray for him. If not, please keep him in your thoughts. I really hope he's got years left in him, but we'll see. Anyway, so a little update that I didn't get to film that I think y'all find very interesting is the R-170. I got some major work done on this thing this time. Unfortunately, of course, I didn't film it because I had two guys here helping me. I didn't have time to set up cameras. I didn't have time to, you know, in between what we were doing to take some shots, but this is what we did. It's pretty cool. Next time I'm up here, we're gonna see some major leaps and bounds with this truck. So let's take a look at it. Look at that thing. It's pretty clear now to see actually everything they did to this thing. You can see the stepped frame. You can come in here and see how everything's set up on there. It's pretty interesting, I think. Got your helper springs and, you know, interesting setup. There's that big Garwood winch I was talking about. All this stuff just kind of out in the open. I finally got this motor set in here just right, so it lines up with the mounts. That motor's just about ready to bolt in. There's the steering wheel from Natalie. Put it on there, fits perfectly. It's not bolted on there. I'm gonna take it back inside. I don't want it sitting out here exposed in the weather. It took a giant industrial skid steer and a tractor with a loader to get the wrecker bed off. So this wrecker bed super cool. Had to take the crane out of it, the hoist, whatever you want to call it, because it was just not great. It was really rough shape and kind of poorly made. And whoever ends up with this bed at the end of the day, they'd want to make their own. They don't want to use that thing. That is garbage. So that'll end up making its way to the scrap yard. But in the meantime, this thing's done, or at least off the truck. I'll probably clean up this bed a little bit more and see if anyone's interested in it. Piles of parts everywhere that I got to start condensing and getting them organized. This truck here, next time I'm up, I'm planning to chop this frame. I think this one's going to be probably I know this famous last words, but probably going to be the easiest one I've ever done, because this is, I don't know, it seems to me like this would be pretty straightforward to shorten this frame, get her all set up for a 9-foot bed. Keeping the duals, don't worry, I'm keeping the duals. I know a lot of people take that pretty personally, but yeah, so this is this project, and I'm excited about the progress. I mean, it seems like a little thing to get that bed off, but it was such a cumbersome thing, and we weren't trying to destroy it, trying to keep it in one piece so that somebody could really make the most of that thing with the patina and everything. It's cool. So in the meantime, got the cab over here. Brought up a new floor for it, didn't have time to put it in. So that'll go on next time. Ah, man, I just wish I could start on this thing right now. There's so much I want to do and talk about with this thing, but we'll get there. We've got time. Got time to get the thing done. It's Lucille. All right, well, that's all the time I've got for this video. I gotta pack up and head back to Texas. I've got some stuff I gotta do back home, and I'll be back here, not next month, but the month after. I'll be up here in August. I'm planning to be here for the Badger Steam and Gas show in Baraboo. It's actually in between Reedsburg and Baraboo. So if you're from the Midwest or Wisconsin, or the old antique tractor circuit, Badger Steam and Gas is a big deal. It's a great show. I've been going there since I was a kid. I'm planning on taking at least a truck, maybe a tractor or two. And yeah, so if you're up here for Badger Steam and Gas, look for me. I'll be there. We've got some more news about a show in California that I'm going to be at in October. So lots of international stuff coming up. I hope you all dig it. And I guess, honestly, just hug your loved ones if you still got them. You don't know how long you have with them. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.